Welcome to the Beauty of Cancer with Dr. Tonya. Today we are talking about money matters for cancer patients, being prepared for a financial setback. And our guest today is Mr. Floyd Gantt. Mr. Gantt is a financial advisor with over 16 years of experience in the financial services industry. Welcome, Mr. Gantt.
Thank you, Dr. Tonya. Pleasure.
Mr. Gantt, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been around the financial arena for 16 plus years. I'm from this area as far as Atlanta, Georgia, and I graduated from a place called Fort Valley University in mathematics. Then I attended Clark, Atlanta. I worked in the financial arena for a company called United Technologies for almost 7+ years before I started my own business with Edward Jones Investments. I've been helping clients with investment for the past 9+ years. And one of the reasons I went into that business and I wanted to look at particular individuals, I wanted to teach them all about how money works, because so many people in this society really don't know what to do, and they wake up every day putting money up in things that really don't pay them any interest. So that's been my job, and I think the Lord has blessed me with that ability to reach out.
Now, I think one of the first things that we're going to talk about is estate planning. I think most people don't have a good estate plan developed. So why is a will? Tell us about a will. Why is a will important?
Well, Dr. Tonya, when I think about people that come into the office, they usually come in and they want to go over a plan, they want to look at different stocks and different investments. But the first thing I tell them, do you have everything in order first? No matter what's going on in your life, you need to have it in order. One thing we talk about is life insurance. We need to make sure that you're insured. But the other thing we want to talk about, if something was to happen to you in your life, do you have things in place going forward? And that's a will. Other things that you can do is a trust, but I tell people, let's start off with a will and a power of attorney. Especially if something happens in your life and you can't control that particular measure, you need a power of attorney, somebody to take control of your finances for you. So we start out with the basics first. Because people have a will, different states have wills. It's just whether you want to leave those individuals money. So you have a will in place, you can leave the money for the individuals that you want to leave them for.
Okay. One thing about cancer, and I know one thing that we never like to focus on, that everybody isn't cured of cancer. There are some people who do succumb to their disease, and a lot of them don't have their affairs in order when that happens. So a power of attorney and a will, those are the things that someone needs to have to get affairs settled. What is a TOD?
Very good question. A lot of people don't know what a TOD is, and I tell people it's the transfer of death policy. When we look at what we call single account or joint accounts, okay, those accounts that are not IRAs are retirement accounts. And when we have those particular accounts, it's not required by law for you to have any beneficiaries. So when you think about that, a lot of people that leave this earth, they have those accounts and they become frozen because you don't have a beneficiary tied to it. But if you have a TOD or a POD from a bank payable upon death, when something happens to you, then people can go out and reach and grab that money to help pay for funeral services. You don't realize in the community that so many people leave this earth, they don't have a joint account, so it's only one person on that checking account or savings account, and then the money's tied up in probate court for years because they can't touch it. But if you have that transfer of death policy out there, and it doesn't cost you anything many times, if not, it's a minimum cost, automatically they can go to that bank, it's automatically transferred to that beneficiary, and they can use that assets for money for anything they want to.
So that's a policy like an insurance policy that someone would get?
I would put it more, Dr. Tonya, more like a will in a sense. When you think about IRAs, retirement account, or 401ks at your job or something, that's already set up a beneficiary because that's what law states. Whether it's ERISA law, whether it's the federal law, the law states you have to have beneficiaries. But on regular accounts such as single or joint accounts, we call it non-qualified money. That means it's not in a qualified IRA or 401k. You don't have to have beneficiaries tied to it. So many people do not have joint accounts because I don't want my daughter touching that account. I don't want this happening. They may go grab it. Well, we understand that. But if that's the case, let's still put a beneficiary there. And that's that transfer of death. This is a single sheet of paper. I know you're going to live to be 99, Dr. Tonya, but in case you don't make it, I want to have that single sheet of paper to make sure it goes to those individuals.
Wow, I learned something today. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about emergency funds. welcome back. We are talking to Mr. Floyd Gantt. We're talking about money matters for cancer patients, and we just finished talking about wills and estate planning. Now we're going to talk about emergency funds. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I had enough money put away. I had that 3 months worth of funds put away, but my cancer treatment lasted 9 months, and I will be honest, I was not prepared. So, Mr. Gantt, tell us about emergency funds and savings and what we need to have.
And that's a great question, Dr. Tonya. I've been around a long time as far as I have certain clients that have come out with different illnesses, and cancer is very popular. Actually, my wife had cancer at one time, so we actually faced that problem inside the home. And when I think about it, when people walk in my office, the first thing before I tell them to invest any money outside of will, I ask them, how much do you have in your short-term money? And that's important. Short-term is not money that's invested. It's money that you have on the side that you can touch if you need it. And I tell clients to have around $3,000 to $9,000 because if something goes out as far as a car engine or something, it may cost you $2,500. And you say, well, Floyd, I got all my money in my 401k plan. That sounds good, but you have to actually borrow against that 401k plan. I don't want you really touching that money because it's your retirement money. So a lot of times we need to have emergency money just in case emergencies come up. The second part of that equation, though, I don't want 30 or 40,000 sitting in a savings account and not making any interest. That's why I come into play. Somebody like me who do financial investments. What I tell people, I'm your long-term banker, but I don't want money sitting there in a savings account paying you 0.2% interest for the rest of your life, and that's what it's going for now with interest rates. So if you're not going to touch the money for a year or two, let's put it somewhere else we can make a few more dollars, such as corporate bonds, which average between 3 to 5%. Because now the money's growing a lot faster in case you need it for the emergencies, such as heaven forbid, cancer, but in case you need it for doctor bills or something, you have a lot more interest built up than just leaving it in a savings account.
Great. Now, you say 3 to 5,000. That's variable depending on your household income. If you had to put it in a percentage of what your living expenses, what would that be? So
good question. I say 3 to 9,000 a lot of times over to 5,000, but everybody's different. Some people have their own business. Some people have different things. Some people have a lifestyle where you may need 20. The way I divide it, and I tell people, if you don't need to touch the money for 1 year, let's put it somewhere else. But if you need to touch it that year, let's leave it in your local savings account or money market. And you say, well, it's money market and investment. No, it's not. Money market is just a glorified savings account. I tell a lot of clients, you're not making a lot of money, but the bank is holding your money in case you need it down the road. You have to understand the bank business is basically, they're there to loan money out. So they're just to hold your money. But what I don't want, if you don't need that money for a couple of years, let's don't leave it there. Because the biggest thing we know in life is retirement. We're living to be 99 years old, but in case something happens like cancer or something, we still want that money to grow.
Correct. So we're going to shift gears right now. We're going to talk about insurance.
Yes.
Life insurance.
Yes.
Is one. And I know there are two main types of life insurance.
Yes.
I know there are lots of little variables,
sure.
But we have our term life insurance, which I think most people have heard of, and then we have whole life insurance. Now, what's the difference between the two of those?
And I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Tonya. You talked about term, and then you said whole life, which a lot of people say that, but it's not really whole life. It's called permanent insurance. Because underneath the permanent umbrella, you have so many different types of insurance. You have whole life, you have guaranteed life, you have other types of insurance, they may call it, but it all means the same thing. It's called permanent, okay? And all that means is going to last a lifetime. So the two divisions that we have, I would tell you, as we talk about cancer and different things, you don't want to wait till you receive cancer to go get life insurance.
Right.
So, we talk about when people walk in my office, I look around and I say, if you have kids, I need you to have life insurance. And usually I tell my young couples they have term. Because term lasts a particular specific part of time. They say, well, Floyd, what happens after those 30 years I have term? I said, well, fantastic. You live 30 years and the kids have left the household. But you don't have $250,000, you don't have $500,000 in your bank account. Let's get something inexpensive to watch over the kids. The second part of that is permanent. I stay away from the whole life for my young couples. I know a long time ago, people used to have whole life when the insurance man used to come out to the house and they would give them a few dollars, and at the end of the day, they had a $15,000 burial policy. Well, if you can have $250,000 or $500,000 in your term for $40 and $30 a month, you probably need to go that route. Because it's probably you need to pay for the kids and different things, and things happen to you. So when I think about permanent insurance, I think about lifetime. So that's more for people who are giving money back to people. If you have beneficiaries that you want to give a certain amount of money back, then let's look at permanent insurance.
Okay. Now, when you say young people, that's a relative term. What are we talking when we say young versus older?
But first of all, Dr. Tonya, you look very good. So I would consider you a young person. But I'm speaking of millennial generation, right? So we talk about generation. We don't want to go higher than Generation X when we talk about that. So millennial will run between that 20 and 30 kind of mark, and then Generation X comes out of that from 30 to 40. Those individuals are still working, still out there trying to earn a living. They're not close to retirement age. It makes more sense for term because they have a 30-year process where they have a young kid who may be 2, 3, or 4, and you're really protecting that kid and that spouse, because if something was to happen to you, they have to raise that child. And a lot of families are on 2-income household. They buy the house, 2-income household. They buy the car, 2-income. And you think about it, if that person passed away with cancer or anything like that, you want to protect them. So a lot of times we have to look at those variables when we buy the life insurance policy.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about insurance. Back to the beauty of cancer. We're talking about financial matters for cancer patients. And when we left, we were talking with Mr. Floyd Gantt about life insurance. So we're going to jump right back into talking about some more life insurance. And we were talking about young people getting term life insurance to start with. And I know a lot of times when we get that first job, that those jobs come with insurance. So, should someone, if they have life insurance at work, get their own policy outside of their work policy?
Dr. Tonya, great question. I'm glad you asked that. That's one of the biggest problems I see in our community, and that's any community I'm dealing with. People having insurance at work, but don't have insurance outside of work. I would tell you almost 90% of people, something happens, and we're talking about cancer, and I'll go over an example. And cancer, we don't wish that upon anybody. But if something happens to that individual and they have cancer, that job may love you and want to keep you at that job for the rest of your life, but eventually you have to leave. And when you walk out of those doors, COBRA kicks in. That's the medical part of your insurance. So you get to keep the medical part for several years. But guess what? That doesn't kick in sometimes. That's your life insurance. It doesn't transfer. And the time you need it for your family, you're not receiving it. That's why I always tell my clients, especially if you have kids or a spouse, if you're the breadwinner, we need you to have life insurance, because that job may give you 3 times, 4 times pay, but it's only as good as you working at that job. And when you leave that job, guess what? It doesn't transfer with you. And I need you to have that, because if you leave this earth, you still need to take care of people around you.
Now, say for instance, you were that person who didn't have life insurance and you got cancer.
Wow.
Can you get life insurance after you've had cancer?
So I had several clients faced with this situation. They did not have cancer. They had it at work, and for some reason they didn't reach out, and I went through the scenario with them. So we came back and said, Floyd, I want cancer. So we go through, most insurance companies do a questionnaire, but it depends on how severe the cancer. Did you have chemo? How long have you been, your cancer's been removed? When's the last time you had radiation? And I look at a process, and I just got through with someone who had colon cancer. We sent it in, and they told him to wait 5 years. Okay, he went through what we call chemo. He went through the certain things that he had to go through, radiation and those things to cure him. He hasn't had it in several years. They just want to wait 5 years, but I've seen it as least as 2 years, and now I've seen it 5 years after the cancer has been removed and no signs of the cancer.
Okay, good. So that's good information to know. So a survivor out there who's had cancer can still get life insurance.
Yes.
But they may have to wait 2 to 5 years before they can be approved for life insurance.
Yes, and you got to realize also, Dr. Tonya, they may not be approved at the highest rate anymore. They may be, so it's 3 different levels. You got your high rate, you got your middle, and you got your low rate, but then you have tables. And that gets into, I had cancer before, or I have certain symptoms, or I have diabetes, or I take insulin. Those come tables, but you still can get insurance. So that's the important thing, and they will let you know. So if you've been cancer-free for a while, you still can go back and get insurance. And I think it's vital to at least have something.
Now, Another question that I've always wondered about, do you need to get life insurance on your children?
Great question. When I think about it, I tell you yes. And you think about some of the cities and things that have occurred within the United States and children passing away, a lot of times in different communities I've seen where you just didn't have the money to pay for the funeral of a child. And the worst thing in the world is to think about a child leaving this earth. We don't want anything to happen, but when you pull out insurance for yourself, especially if you're a woman, I'm gonna tell you this now, women insurance is cheaper than men insurance because women live longer, okay? But when you think about insurance, it's easy to pull out a child or children rider. With that insurance, it only costs a few more dollars. And a lot of times they cover you up to 20, and you go up to 20,000, 15,000, 10,000, and it will cover not just one child. You ready, Dr. Tonya?
Oh, wow.
It covers all your kids, the same price. So if you're that person who has 7 kids, you're getting a bargain. And you think about it, it usually covers a child to 25 years of age.
Wow.
So a lot of times you see these commercials with Gerber and different things, and you think about these whole life insurance. But I tell people, just get a rider. You got 250, 500,000 on yourself. You cover the child maybe for 20,000 or 15,000, $5 or $6 difference. Go for it.
Okay, great. That's good information. Now let's change gears a little bit and talk about something long-term care insurance.
Wow.
Tell us about long-term care insurance.
Well, long-term care is not relatively new, but it's relatively new in the sense that people started using it about 10 or 15 years ago. I was a big person in long-term care, but the industry's changed a lot. But let me tell you how it works. I've always told my clients to get long-term care because it protects you once you leave that hospital. So if you have a stroke, if you have cancer, they'll take care of you with a medical insurance with you at the hospital. But in case you leave that hospital, who's taking care of you then? That's when long-term care kicks in. And it's called activities of daily living. It's 6 of them. I'm gonna try to remember all of them now, but continence transferring, eating, bathing, dressing, I think, and I'm thinking the last one, incontinence, okay? That's all 6 of them. If 2 of those 6 occur, then long-term care kicks in. But it provides any kind of care where you need to have somebody come to your house, you need to have somebody kind of watch you, because you may have a great family, you may have great children, but they may not be able to come to your house all the time and take care of you. So I love long-term care. The industry's changed a lot because now a lot of people are using it, but I tell you, it's definitely something to have, especially if you have a sum of money, because the first thing that goes when you have your retirement money is the medical costs, and long-term care protects that.
Great. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more with Mr. Floyd Gantt. Welcome back. We've been talking with Mr. Floyd Gantt about money matters for cancer patients. And right now, we're going to talk about excessive debt.
Yes.
Now, when someone has cancer and they say they didn't have an adequate emergency fund put away, or say they had an emergency fund, but it just wasn't adequate enough for the length of time that they had a financial setback, and they end up using up all of their available credit and building up a lot of debt, having outstanding deductibles and co-pays from insurance, and they come out of treatment with a significant amount of debt. Now, what's the best way that someone should try to, get rid of that debt? Is bankruptcy ever an option? Or when is it time to say, we need to think about bankruptcy?
Excellent question, Dr. Tonya. And I won't tell you I'm an expert in bankruptcy at all, but I will tell you that I call myself a key referral center. Okay, so I have estate planners, I have CPAs, and guess what? I have bankruptcy lawyers. So I try to lead people in the right direction. I've come across so many different people. Whether you're losing your house, whether you're doing different things, we evaluate that situation. And I sit there and I make a phone call. And I've seen where people have high debt, things have occurred, and they try to pay that debt down. And the first thing I tell them, let's stop here. We don't have enough income coming in to pay off that debt, and you don't want to continue to either to hold that house, maybe it's a rental home or something, or have a high debt and you can't pay off with high credit cards and continue to pay them, sacrificing all the reserve cash you have through your 401k plan. So we stop. Guess what? The only place that you can save your money and they can't touch it? Retirement accounts. No matter what occurs and you file bankruptcy, they can never touch your, guess what? Retirement accounts. So the last thing you want to do is touch your 401k plan, your Roth IRA, your traditional IRA, or any retirement account you have. You don't ever touch it. That's the first thing they touch. So do bankruptcy, is that good? Yes, because if you're in high debt, you can always call, and the first thing you don't do is I call my bankruptcy lawyer, and he'll lead you in that direction, which type of bankruptcy you should have, but never go get all your reserve cash to pay a creditor when you cannot have any reserve cash in case you need it down the road.
That's good advice. Now, when someone, what's the best way to start over after, say for instance, you filed for bankruptcy? What's the best way to start over? So
I have clients that file for bankruptcy, and it actually works out in their advantage a lot of times when they get rid of all their creditors and different things. Because if you think about it, they can only have so much, but they have money coming in every particular year. And those who are well balanced, who understand about getting back on track, your credit may not be right, but you can start putting money back in retirement accounts. And once you put it back in retirement accounts, such as that Roth IRA or that traditional IRA or maybe your 401k plan at work, that money's protected. They can't touch your money once it's in a what? Retirement account. Yes. So now that money is protected, and you're putting money back in there while your credit score is taking that 7 years or whatever it is to get back on track, and you're stashing the money away in case something ever happens, and now you're getting well-rounded. And that's what we want. We know we face certain things that people went through different bankruptcies, but now we want to make sure that you're well-rounded going forward and you have that reserve cash. And one way you can put it up and nobody can ever touch it in case you lose your business, if you're an independent owner or things go a little wrong in your life, leaving that retirement account.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Gantt, for joining us today. We got a lot of valuable information in talking with Mr. Gantt. We're going to come back with part 2 of our interview with Mr. Gantt, and we'll focus on investing. But you've been watching The Beauty of Cancer with Dr. Tonya, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.